Welcome to the online Rica Test preparation course presented by ricatest.com. Thanks so much for joining us. In this lesson, you will learn the simple framework to writing a passing response for your Subtest 2 short essay, which covers domain 4, vocabulary, academic language, and background knowledge. Now, before you read the essay prompt, make sure you read the task to understand what you're going to be writing about. So here's the prompt. We have examining task. Using your knowledge of reading instruction, write a response in which you, here are the two things I'm going to have to do in this short essay response. First one, describe how to provide differentiated instruction for this activity to address the needs of English learners and explain why the instructional strategy you described would be effective in promoting the development of vocabulary, academic language, and or background knowledge to the English learners. I'm going to take a quick pause from the video before I show my essay response to remind you that this prompt is actually already embedded into your Rica Subtest 2 workbook that came along with this course. So if you haven't already, first try your best to write your response and then come back to watch my written response process. Okay, let's get started. Now, let's go ahead and let's read the essay prompt. Here, I'm going to read this one out loud. Essay prompt. A fourth grade teacher will soon begin a unit on Earth and planets in our solar system. Okay. Before the students read to learn from their science textbooks, the teacher divides the students using heterogeneous grouping and provides a baggie to each group that includes fun facts in written sentences about one of the planets. Each group learns about a different planet. All right. The students distribute the informational pieces from within the bag to the group mates. The students then read the information to learn about the planet and jot down their learnings in their science notebooks. Okay, got it. After a bit of time, the teacher rounds the students back up together and they have a whole class discussion where they share what they learned. Okay. While the students present their findings, the teacher writes the learnings on the board. During this time, the teacher clusters similar topics together as the students use words like gravity, orbit, core, density, and more. All right, before we continue, these were mentioned in the Subtest 2 essay introduction lesson, but let's remember them because they are certainly important. The three important performance characteristics that your written essay responses will be graded by include purpose, application of content, and support. Purposes, the examinee fulfills the prompt using relevant content and pedagogical knowledge. Application of content, the examinee accurately and effectively applies this relevant content and pedagogical knowledge, okay? And then support, the examinee supports the written response with appropriate examples, evidence, and rationales based on the relevant content and pedagogical knowledge. Okay, I think I got it. Let's go next. Just to confirm, I want to look back at the examining task now since I've read the passage. Um, Task number one again says describe how to provide differentiated instruction for this activity about planets for the needs of English learners. Okay, got it. Now, first, I'm going to go back to the essay prompt. I noticed that this essay prompt takes place within a science lesson. So I'll want to demonstrate my understanding that English learners oftentimes, particularly, have a difficult time with content area language, such as the vocabulary that was mentioned at the bottom gravity, orbit, core, density, and more. Okay, there they are right there. Now, I like that the teacher is using heterogeneous grouping, which is a topic learned in competency number one, the competency one lesson. But I still think that there are strategies we can add to provide differentiation for our English learners. Let's begin to write our response. Okay, so let's read this out loud. The teacher can provide differentiated instruction for English learners by one, drawing word maps on the board with the target vocabulary in the center, for example, gravity, orbit, core, and density, to activate the student's background knowledge on the topic and directly teaching the essential content area vocabulary that all students will need to complete this activity successfully. Okay. Furthermore, the teacher should, number two, use visual pictures and diagrams alongside the written facts that are placed within the baggie to reinforce new vocabulary for the English learners. And number three, to support spelling, instead of having the English learners freely write their findings in their science notebook, the teacher can provide a scaffold worksheet that includes a word bank. I like that. Notice how the response is direct and to the point. That's what your Rica test scores are going to want to know as well. Now, remember that the Rica test essay format is not formal. What is most important is that your messaging is clear, direct, and accurate. Use numbers, bullet points, or subtitles to help you help the Rica test scorers find your answers within your response. All right. This tells me that task number one has been achieved. Now, let's go to task number two, which says explain why leading a discussion using visuals and writing the words will effectively promote English learners' development of vocabulary, academic language, and background knowledge. So let's think back to the strategies presented in Competency 10 and Competency 11, those lessons from the online course, in order to finish our essay response. Okay, here's my second paragraph. This strategy would be effective in addressing the needs of English learners because it uses word maps, which are known to be helpful pre reading supports that activate students' prior knowledge. Furthermore, adding visual diagrams and pictures inside the group's baggies will help English learners connect new vocabulary to their meaning through the use of concrete examples. Then, providing a word bank reinforces usage of the new vocabulary words for the writing exercise. Okay. Now, as we can see, the second paragraph supports the instructional plan that I presented from the first paragraph, and it stays focused on the target students, which are English learners. So task number two is now complete. Notice before we go here that in the response, we have two different paragraphs because we have two different tasks. And this is one way that you can help the Rica test scorers identify which section represents which task. All right, and that is how to read, think about, examine, organize, and finally write a short response essay for your subtest number two on your Rica test. All right, I'll see you in the next video.